Hey guys, welcome back. Man, listen, this new skin for Noob Saibot of the Batman Who Laughs, like I just can't put the feeling in words, but I'ma try. Because I was just hoping that they would do this. And granted, I would rather the Batman Who Laughs to be a dedicated DLC character, but for now, I'll totally take the skin. Like, I can't wait till it comes out. But yesterday when Ed Boon dropped this clip on Twitter, and it was like around 1:30 in the afternoon, but when I seen this dude, like, I lost it. And I understand that quite a few people have their mixed feelings as far as this skin and it not having like the mouth animations, which I assume is because it's a Noob Saibot skin and he doesn't have any kind of face animations whatsoever. Like, if you've seen him, he always has a mask on. And actually, ironically, his face has like the reverse need for rigging animations for like expressions. Because in his case, his mouth is covered, so there's no need to rig anything for mouth movement aside from his mask moving slightly, so for that reason all of his expression is in his eyes. But in the case of the Batman Who Laughs, it's literally the opposite. His eyes are covered and his mouth is exposed. So I can understand why people feel some type of way, but at the same time, it's just the skin. So functionality is limited and essentially it's still new. But one of the things I was thinking, and I was going back and forth on even doing this video, like I couldn't sleep last night, so I got up and here I am. But one of the things I was thinking is like with a lot of what people were saying on Twitter, and there was a few that suggested that we should have him in Injustice 3, and even others who made similar remarks to him being a dedicated DLC character, much like the Joker, but with his own set of moves, his own dialogue, his own intros, which I still would like to see, like don't get it twisted. But what I would rather, much more than any of these things, and it'll probably never happen, but I would much rather for the Batman Who Laughs to get his own dedicated game. And it could be a single player campaign, or it could be something much like Mortal Kombat. And for the record, I'm very much leaning towards the Mortal Kombat route. And hear me out, because essentially like with Mortal Kombat 11 for example, you have your fighting mode where players can go head to head, which gives you the opportunity to have a number of characters throughout this game, which is something I'll get back to in just a minute. But also, like a majority of the other Mortal Kombat games, you also had your story mode that played along with it. And with saying that, I'm sure plenty of you guys are going to be in the comments like, oh, but man, Injustice was the same way. No, it wasn't. Because with Injustice, much like Mortal Kombat versus the DC universe, there's no fatalities, there's no blood, at least I think there's no blood. But with Injustice, there's just things that you can't do in comparison to just having a completely new title that would be more so modeled after Mortal Kombat, which in my opinion would be the best way to go about this because it would have to be introduced as something new. And with it being a story which is built around the Batman Who Laughs, like there is going to be a lot of gore that's going to be associated with that. And in my opinion, an Injustice title just wouldn't be the place for that. And this is also why I believe we get the Joker in Injustice and also in Mortal Kombat, because with having him in Mortal Kombat, he's able to play completely different, and you now have fatalities and brutalities. And as far as the Batman Who Laughs, who needs to get down and dirty, I just believe he'd be served much better either in Mortal Kombat as a full DLC character or in a fresh new situation with his own game. But how would that game play out, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm about to tell you. So now, like I said, fighting style with story modeled much after MK11. And from here, first I'll get into the story as far as where I believe it should go, and after that I'll get into the characters that I want to be in this game. And of course, this untitled game that I just made up in my mind. But as far as the story, and there's two ways that I think that this could go. Because one way you could go is just full out Dark Knight's metal. And you can start with the narrative, the Dark Multiverse, and really just play out much like the event did in the comics. And along with this, have playable characters like the Devastator, Dawnbreaker, Merciless, Red Death, Barbatos, the World Forger. Like, it would be crazy. And like with Red Death, like man, I could just imagine, like with the way that the Flash handled in Injustice 2, like just take that and crank up the brutal fight moves. Oh, and don't forget the skins, like we gotta have like the gold skin, like that's a must. But also with this example and just modeling after the Dark Knight's metal narrative, like when it comes to the heroes, like they still wouldn't have like your quote unquote finisher per se, but instead I'd imagine they'd have like just a super brutal like ending move, like Batman literally breaking every bone in someone's body. Which would still be true to his character, but even still, like the Dark Knight's metal narrative, like that wouldn't be necessarily my first choice, although I would still want the main narrative to refer back to Dark Knight's metal. But for the most part, I would much rather it focus on many of the gaps that we have within the history of the Batman Who Laughs. And the way that I would imagine that playing out, which would likely need to start with some sort of origin, and not for the whole game, but just enough in the beginning to kind of give people an idea of where he came from. Almost like your beginning sequence in Witcher 3. And by the way, if there's anyone watching this who's just now stumbling on my page and you don't really know who the Batman Who Laughs is, I got a link down in the description that has about 17 videos that'll get you all caught up. So if you need to, go ahead and check that out, and then you can head back here and watch this one again. But as far as the second idea where the narrative should go, I think it should take a route more so of what we talked about in Mortal Men, which took place right after Dark Knight's Metal, and it started to give us these hints towards what the Batman Who Laughs was doing after he wrecked Earth -22 and he was sitting around bored out of his mind until he met Barbatos. Because it was pretty much from there, after meeting Barbatos, that the Batman Who Laughs presumably learned about Perpetua and more about the multiverse and how it functioned outside of the traditional history. And I believe like with starting there and showing us what the Batman Who Laughs was talking about when he told the Infinite Woman how to kill the Immortal Man because he had done it before in his universe, which would be a pretty crazy fight story for the Batman Who Laughs in my opinion, because covering this journey would also lend to like a number of amazing characters to throw in there too. Like the Kill, who's pretty much Scarlet from MK11. Like everything that she does with blood, this guy does it too. But in addition to that, just taking that route, you could have your different Immortal Man characters who look like they belong in MK11 anyway, and like you still would have your Nightmare Batman. Like either way, I want the full roster as big as it can get. But along with that, also throw in Perpetua and like introduce her with the backstory of how the Batman Who Laughs found out about her, which once again was likely through Barbatos. And like for whatever reason, I just imagine Perpetua kind of looking like Centurion in gameplay format for whatever reason. But along with Perpetua, you also gotta have half Martian Lex Luthor, which would then open a whole nother can of worms because now you gotta have all the infected. King Shazam, Scarab, Deathbringer, everybody. And look, I know, I'm going off the deep end. But I firmly believe like if marketed right, which is why I said this couldn't be an Injustice 3 type of thing. Like it would absolutely be totally separate and given more of that Mortal Kombat franchise treatment. And I truly believe like a new property like that, a brand new property, like it would just have crazy potential. But that'll do it for this one guys. Like I could go on and on about what this idea could be, but for now I just want to put a few thoughts out there and just let it do what it do. And really like a lot of this is just coming from like the little bit that I've seen of the Batman Who Laughs skin for MK11, and it's just got the gears in my mind running around crazy just thinking about all the different ways that we could get the Batman Who Laughs in other forms of media in addition to the comics. Because as long as I can remember, you guys have been in the comments like he needs an animated movie, he needs a live action movie, and out of everything I think the animated movie is the most likely out of a next step. But man, like in game format to where you can get up to 12 hours plus of story and the multitude of characters he's connected to, like I just think that would be like a dream come true. Or perhaps a nightmare come true, I should say. But let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comments, and even let me know some of your ideas as far as story of where you think it could go. Because another idea that I have, which I didn't mention because it more so falls into my second suggestion, but it's also us getting the opportunity to explore what exactly happened when the Batman Who Laughs went up against the Spectre, like we found out in issue 2 of Hell Arisen. Oh, and before I forget, the game would also have to have the Grim Knight. Like that is a non-negotiable right there. And really that just gave me another idea, because still in a very MK11 style game, but instead of doing one huge story mode, they could just do like multiple short films, much like Blizzard did with Overwatch. But in this case they wouldn't necessarily all have to connect together, but rather they can just act like a bunch of one-shots doing the character backgrounds. And with that I gotta add James Gordon Jr. Just last one. But really though, if you think about it, James Gordon Jr. in MK11 or Batman Who Laughs MK11 style game, like come on man, you can't tell me that wouldn't be good. But that's it man, like I'm done for real this time. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think and how exactly you feel like a dedicated Batman Who Laughs game should play out. But let me know down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.